Hello and welcome to Sunday Politics, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzama, bringing you up to speed with what's been happening in the polity. As far as politics and the polity is concerned, we'll try to look around to make sure we bring you the biggest highlight. And we've got a couple of highlights and some big issues to talk about today. Two-pronged approach to the conversation. One, we're going to dwell a lot on the issues around the southeast, that region, and some of the development in that area and the challenges they are facing. You know, it's a potpourri of issues when it comes to the southeast, and it's an ongoing conversation every other day. And then we'll talk about the state of the nation and the part two of the program. But let's bring you up to speed with what's happened earlier today. There were at least 5 people have been confirmed dead after a petrol-laden tanker lost control and it burst into flames in Agbo town in Ika South local government area of Delta State. Eyewitness videos captured shortly after the incident show residents and passerbys desperately attempting to extinguish the flames as they waited the arrival of firefighters. The inferno severely damaged several houses and vehicles in the vicinity. Eyewitness reports that the driver lost control while attempting to make a turn on the old Lagos-Asaba road that runs through Agbo's main town, resulting in the brake failure. So you can see people just around this particular environment trying to make the most. The flames were still there at that time. So this is coming in from Delta State. Property destroyed and lives lost. At least 5 persons have been reported dead from this particular very unfortunate incident barely 5 days into the new year. Well, our thoughts and our prayers are with those families that have been affected by this particular incident. Let's head to Rivers State, where the people of Ogoni in Rivers State have called for what they consider judicial review to exonerate Mr. Kent Aruiwa, the rights activist, and other activists executed by the Abacha-led administration, the military administration, in 1995. This demand was articulated in an economic blueprint presented by His Royal Highness, Her Majesty Samuel Ne, the Benemene Twatwa Tai of Tai Kingdom, during the 32nd Ogoni Day celebration held in Bori, the traditional rulers or traditional headquarters of the Ogoni land. The event marked historic reconciliation of the 3 factional leaders of the movement for the survival of Ogoni people, perhaps signaling a united front for their shared cause.
I was part of those who, visit Mr. President, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu on the 15th of May last year. And we presented our demand, a simple thing, unbundle the OMA level, give it to Ogoni name so that we can have some participation. We did that. We also presented the issue of exoneration, so review the issue that relates to the brutal killings of Ken Saro-Wiwa, 8 others, and by extension, our 4 prominent leaders. And we also presented the issue, of giving assent and establishment of Federal University of Environment, courtesy of the freedom of what the Ogoni people stands for. If our environment is our first right, is decent, we will live long. Because of the polluted environment, it has resulted to death, poverty, and poor healthcare, bad roads, and so on, poor infrastructures. So if that happens, but today, you can see the people. Our people have gathered so far without any outcry of, conflict or skirmishes for 32nd years.
All right, so that's coming from Mossop. Beg your pardon. Now, let's talk about the visit of Mr. President, to Enugu State yesterday. The President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, was in Enugu State yesterday on a state visit, which was a one-day state visit, where he commissioned some projects from schools to infrastructure to issues around security. But there was a stakeholders forum where he interacted with some of the leaders of the Southeast. We had some governors come around, the governors of, besides the host governor, we had Abia State Governor. I think we also had the Imo State Governor, the Progressive Governors Forum Chairman, as well as other leaders, including traditional rulers that were in that stakeholders meeting yesterday with the president. But they fielded questions, they asked him to do certain things or made appeal to the president, and in his response, he told them some of the things he would do. Let's take a listen.
rail line is a work in progress. I inherited some of these critical problems, and I'm going to do it. Support for the gas infrastructure, sure. Gas is an alternative fuel, and there's no wasting of time, but invest more in it. We'll do it together.
All right, so those were the remarks of Mr. President. But let me bring you some of the details of the project. There are two things he said. He talked about the Eastern Rail Line. It comes from Port Harcourt in Rivers State, across the entire Southeast region, all the way to the Middle Belt, down to Maiduguri. So if I can get that particular side. So he promised to complete the Eastern Rail Line. The rail line connects Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. Initially, it was valued at $1.9 billion, but I think some spurs were established within the corridor, extending it. Now it's 3 billion, and then it was initially less than 2,000 kilometers. It's about 2,000 kilometers, a narrow gauge that cuts across about 14 states. It was actually initiated in 2021 under the Muhammadu Buhari administration. But let's also talk about the Anambra Basin that he talked about. So he said he's going to support the development of that basin. The basin, we understand, holds about 1 billion barrels of crude oil, holds an estimated 30 billion cubic feet of gas. What has actually delayed this project is funding and insecurity, which is why the president has made a promise, because the project has some economic significance. So those are quite the highlights of that visit and some of the things the president had promised when he visited Enugu State yesterday. All right, so let's talk about the Southeast. So from the South, from Enugu State, let's broaden the conversation across the Southeast. We're being joined by the Secretary to the State Government of Enugu State, Professor Chidi Onye, joins us via Zoom. Prof, thanks for coming on the program. Also joining us from our Abuja studio is Dennis Angbo, is the member representing Udenu Igbo, North Federal Constituency in Enugu State. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Prof, there were a couple of things.
Happy New Year to Nigeria.
Happy New Year to you, I must say. My apologies. Happy New Year to you. Let me start with some of the gray areas that I observed. I know that someone had raised the question, before we talk about some of these listing that I did, just bringing the audience up to speed as to why some of the promises the president made and the highlight or details of that promise. I know that there was a gentleman, I can't remember his name, that raised the issue of the over-militarization of the region, the too much police checkpoints and all of that on that particular day. But I do not know that, I don't think the president actually responded to that particular question. And I was surprised also to see, correct me if I'm wrong, that the issue of Nnamdi Kanu was not raised in that forum. Maybe bring us up to speed as to why. Prof.
So, thank you so much. Happy New Year to you again. I'm not sure why the issue of Nnamdi Kanu was not raised, but I think that all the security issues were discussed, and you mentioned that you don't think Mr. President had responded to that particular comment. But if you recall that the conversation was around how we were going to drive security with technology. And it was, in his comment, he said he was in support of integrating security more so that we don't have so many boots on the ground as it relates to checkpoints. So in Enugu State, what we have put in significant investment in ensuring that we use technology to drive most of our security issues in the state. You recall that he came to commission our Command and Control Center. And in the Command and Control Center, we believe that His Excellency has put in significant investment, which he also talked about, that investment in technology is something that, in technology for security, is something that he commends and something that he supports completely. But the emphasis on the militarization of the area, as the gentleman laid it, was around the checkpoints as it relates to the cost of goods, logistics, and the implication of that on inflation as it relates to a pass-through cost to the consumer. That was what we were talking about. So it focused really about economic development, the implication of all the checkpoints, and how it affects the cost, the final cost of the product on the masses. And that was the context of the conversation.
Honorable Member Dennis, so I don't know whether let me take it to Mr. Dennis on this one. Mr. Dennis, I don't know whether you understand or you are privy to why the issue of Nnamdi Kanu was not raised. Because the reason I'm going back there is because whenever I had conversation, even with some of the leaders, including governors, I know that Chukwuma Soludo, the governor, had made constant appeal. People like Senator Barry Bay, they've talked about this whole issue of Nnamdi Kanu. I was feeling like, I'm sure lots of Nigeria will also feel the fact that the president was present in the Southeast. His very first official visit to the region this year, 2025, and the first visit to any other state besides coming to Lagos to rest. Why was the issue of Nnamdi Kanu not raised? And do you think and agree that the area and the region is over-policed or militarized?
Thank you once again. Just like you said, the issue of Nnamdi Kanu has been raised in various fora. Various people have spoken and made requests concerning Nnamdi Kanu. Governors, different people have spoken about this particular subject. So the governor of Enugu State had a very remarkable opportunity to push forward the issue of the development of Enugu State, the infrastructural development, the harnessing of technology to drive our development. He invited the president to observe and see, witness what he is trying to do to develop our state. And I think that because that you can say, as you have already said, that the issue of Nnamdi Kanu has been belabored. It didn't need a repetition. It didn't need to take the little time or the amount of time that the president had to spend in Enugu State. I think that enough requests have been made, emphasis have been made, issues have been joined on that particular matter, and I didn't think that it was necessary for him again to come and start driving home the same point again that many other people have made. He had a lot of things to say about the development of the state, the educational sector, employment of technology in fighting crime, infrastructural development, and so on and so forth. So I think he managed his time very, very well and focused attention on those things that maybe not too many people have spoken about or come from the angle that he is coming from. And I think that was a very good use of time, of the president's time, instead of repeating the same thing that other people have.
Let me now take it to Prof on some as we move on to other issues because this has been an ongoing issue for maybe 2 years or more, and it's affected the economic and socio-economic well-being of the area. But it was interesting to hear that there is no more sit at home in Enugu State. How true is that? Does this not sitting at home extend to the communities or just in the city center, Prof?
Yes, so on the assumption of office, His Excellency Dr. Peter Mba made a very consequential statement, if you recall. The very first statement he made was around the illegality of non-state actors setting out a day to be considered a work-free day. So we set out in doing that, and he called a town hall meeting and showed that that was clearly communicated at all levels within the state, and now put the necessary processes in motion to ensure that people felt confident that their lives were secure. So it started the process gradually of getting people back to work, public servants, the markets, the transport system, the gas stations, everything now gradually began to take its full banks, began to take its full processes in terms of coming to work on Monday and having 5 official days. Now, in doing that, we also set out what the economic implication in making our argument of sitting at home and having only 4 days, which amounts to 32 hours of work, as against the 40 hours that they ought to have at work. We also looked at the implication of now having people do business in Enugu only from Tuesday, schools also open up for teaching and learning only 4 days of the week, when they were running a curriculum timeline that set out 185-ish days of contact hours in terms of teaching, learning, and assessment. And when we presented this to the people of Enugu and shared what the deficit is on our learning process, on our economic growth, in line with His Excellency's plan on getting in office to move in the next 8 years our GDP from 4.4 billion to 30 billion. It showed them the alignment, and that was why you noticed that there was significant investment in security, not just the boots on the ground, but also in terms of engaging in intelligence and all that. So when you come to Enugu now, be the rural area, in the city center, people go to work every day, and gas stations are open. Economic activity goes on. The public service offices are open for business, because the first thing he did on the 1st of September 2023 was to set out a roundtable, investor roundtable, where he announced to the world that Enugu was open for business. And we know, as His Excellency will always remind, that one thing that we can hedge against if we're a private investor is security. So that was the role of the state, to ensure that the key sets of infrastructure and processes regarding security were put in place. That also led to our now launching our Security Trust Fund that helps us engage people at the grassroots and our diasporan citizens to be able to invest in security and take ownership of that. So when you come into Enugu now with our command and control, which Mr. President commissioned, and that was what he was speaking about, you will see significant investment there. And the comfort level of citizens of Enugu as it relates to going out on Monday has increased significantly, because now people feel a level of comfort, because Dr. Peter Mbai is actually putting what it takes to create that level of comfort where people feel safe now to come out. So to answer your question, yes, Monday is a full working day in Enugu State, as other days of the week, and economic activities are going on. Flights are coming in, transportation is ongoing, schools are open, hospitals are open, banks are open, the markets are open.
Prof.
So Enugu is one of the southeast states where you're sure that if you're flying on Monday to do business, you will complete your business and leave same day.
All right, Mr. Agbo, it's quite commendable to hear this. So why hasn't this been able to be replicated across Anambra, Abia, Imo, and Ebonyi, so that I don't know what they did in Enugu. What exactly can be done to replicate this in the region? Because if within the period of this agitation by this element, this has been achieved, why can't it be replicated?
Thank you. I think we set standards, and it's there for people to see. The SSG who just spoke explained the commitment of the governor to grow the economy of Enugu State from 4.2 billion to 32 billion. Now, that is a tall order. That's a tall order. And other states will be watching to see this come to fruition. And one of the ways to do so is to increase or to optimize the number of working days in Enugu State. We had 4 working days, now we have 5. So the economy is going at full steam. Then the enabling environment is being created. Other things are being done. the other states are watching us. Many governors came and they listened to the agenda of the governor of Enugu State. Him explain his plans. They will watch, they will see how the benefit that this will bring to the table. It is up to them to see whether they can also engage their people the way our governor has done and explain to them why this is the way to go. He has done that and the benefits will show. It is the benefits that will comfort, that will justify what he is trying to do. And then that's what will drive other people to say, yes, really Enugu has become a model. Why don't we copy this model? And everywhere in life, people set standards. People operate as role models. The governor is determined and working very hard to work as a model in the region. If other people see it and they see that, yes, this is the way to go, they will follow. That is the way. That's what I think.
All right, Prof. I know that we've heard the governor say he wants to move the IGR from about 4-5 billion to about 30 billion in about 48 months, which is about 4 years or so. Quite a tall order, but there's nothing wrong in dreaming. On one hand, you're going to respond to how this is possible, but I'm not just talking about Enugu today, I'm also talking about the region. But because the president was in Enugu, so we use Enugu to piggyback on some of the things we're talking about. The president has promised that the Eastern Rail Line will be completed. What level of assurance, besides the rhetoric, are you expecting to see that this is possible? Because that rail line runs from Port Harcourt across the entire southeast state down to places like Maiduguri.
Yes. So Mr. President has been very clear that he's going to work with the government of the southeast to ensure that this rail line is completed. So it's the Port Harcourt Abia aspect of it that's been done. So we have it running all the way from Enugu through the Middle Belt to Maiduguri. We're also going to follow up with some written commitment to His Excellency, reiterating part of what he had said to ensure that this process continues. You do know that this request is not something that is new. So many people had in the past tried to share the need to enhance this mode of transportation to reduce the cost of logistics, especially because we know the implication it has on the economy of the Southeast. But what the governor has done is because he set out clear performance indicators on how we will build our economy. And when it comes to the logistics and the transport aspect of it, we have done the analysis and we understand the value this brings, even as we're also looking at the international terminal for our cargo flights, bringing in items into Enugu, and also other aspects. We have a dry port also, and other things that we're looking at, a multimodal transportation system that we've run a clear assessment, and we've had the first concept note, and we also did an outline business case that looks at the whole transportation hub. So this is one aspect of it, and we know it's a very important aspect. So His Excellency has presented that request, and we trust that everything, the commitment Mr. President made is something that he's made very clearly. It was very clear when he said that he inherited this project and that it's work in progress. And what that means is that we will continue to engage with the right stakeholders to push this to fruition. So we're very mindful that there are multiple layers of engagement to having this work, from the presidency to the federal ministries and the rest of the other key actors involved in it. But as Enugu State, we're committed to pushing this agenda. And we're just not saying, we're tying the whole ecosystem of transportation so that it's very clear the value add for investing in this in the region and what that translates to in the Southeast and after that the nation. And you did say something about the GDP. Yes, so on assumption of office, His Excellency had run, we're very clear, the GDP that we inherited at the point he took over office. So the projection of 30 billion is not something, like you said, that is a dream. It's actually based on empirical evidence. We ran the numbers and we saw that the redundant assets and the assets we have in Enugu State, and if we catalyze investment to align each of this across sectors to our economic growth trajectory, that it was going to actually improve on our GDP. And that was why you noticed that there was a significant investment in security and also at the ease of doing business by digitizing and digitalizing our whole processes within the state for people that are coming in. So it's not something that he said, like you said, a dream. No, it's actually one that is built, very clearly thought out. It's not knee-jerk. Something that was real thought out with the right indicators built into it post-election and as a product from the transition committee that was set up. So we've been working diligently in improving our IGR, opening up the space for investment across the board. And now, for now, one thing I can assure you is that if you're coming into Enugu in the past, you could get a flight right away. But now it will take you 3 or 4 days to come into the city because of the nature of the economic activities going on. So it's something that he thought through it, and it's something that we're working diligently to achieve it.
All right, Prof, let me take you to Ms. Agbo. Ms. Agbo, let's talk a bit of politics. One, I know that somebody had raised an issue at some point, and I want you to speak to it because I know you're the core politician here. One of the issues that was raised is the fact that places like Ogun State, for instance, has like 4 ministers. I know that the Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment, Communication, I think the Minister of State for Environment or so, and the Minister of, what other minister, I think Finance or so. So like 4 ministers, and the entire Southeast has just about 5 ministers, so my understanding, and that's been a point of agitation. Do you think that the government, this present government, is the representation of the region is significant enough to begin to quell some of the agitation, because people are making this case?
Thank you. It is in making a commitment for the development of the rail line, Eastern Rail Line from Port Harcourt up to Maiduguri. It's like the president answered my concern, because while we debated the budget for the federal budget for the second reading, I expressed this when it was my turn to speak. I spoke about an L-shaped road network that was to run from Sokoto down to Badagry and run from Badagry up to Calabar and then to Cameroon. I had expressed the concern that this did not include this other open yawning space of the Southeast. It is like the president came to answer that concern with the commitment to establish this rail line going from Port Harcourt right through the Southeast, Southeast, Middle Belt, and up to the Northeast. Now, that will energize the economy of Nigeria. For us in the Southeast, if the Southeast people, we speak about the economy, we are very interested in freeing up the space so that we can do business, create value, and so on and so forth. I don't think that the issue of ministers, they are Nigerian ministers. But remember the Southeast in terms of what the environmental degradation of the Southeast, what erosion is doing in the Southeast, the enabling environment, the dredging of the River Niger, an additional port, functional port at Port Harcourt, One, and maybe Calabar. These are the and then this
Ms. Agbo, let me butt in here. My apologies.
Most critical infrastructure
if you can hear me, Ms. Agbo, if you can hear me, my question is straight. You've answered, Prof has answered a couple of the things you said. It's important you add your voice. Are you satisfied with the representation of the Igbo nation in the federal cabinet? It's just a straight question.
It is the fairness is very the unfairness is very obvious for us to see. But if you don't give us ministers, but you give us those things that enable us to thrive as a people and as a regional economy, we can now begin to say there's a balancing or there's an equity in the things that the present government is doing.
Okay, let me take it to Prof as we wind down. Prof, I want you to speak to the issue of cohesion in the region, to be able to speak with one voice to advance political interests of the region. That has been a concern, that the nation, the Igbo nation, is not as united as it is. That's why it's quite difficult for it to achieve the things it potentially should achieve. Do you agree, and how do we move forward from there?
I think when this set of governors came in, the first thing that happened was they all had their meeting in Enugu with the Southeast governors, and they shared a few of what they felt was important for the region. They have had several engagements since then. There's also been an integration of thought leaders within the Igbo nation, Igbo leadership, a couple of other Aki Kenga and the rest of them. They've all continued to send decision support documents to the Southeast governors, who, by the way, not too long ago has set out a summit. And in that summit, they had also discussed the economic agenda of the region. So this set of governors, if you notice, have made it a plan to work together and build cohesion, and also build from lessons learned from the past, and to ensure that the regional interest trumps individual state interests. So they've been working really hard, and there are few historical challenges, but this set of governors are working really hard to overcome that and stay focused on what would drive the economic base of the region. And in doing that, improve the quality of lives of the Southeasterners, and also attract investment across the board. So that they're working on the cohesion, and I think you're going to notice something different in a short while in terms of their agreement. And you also notice what happened when Mr. President visited. That, 4 of the Southeast governors were also there in support of Dr. Peter Ndubisiba in terms of his infrastructural and education strategy. So there's the cohesion coming up, and it's very clear that Southeast will be different.
You know, why I asked that question in ending the conversation with you gentlemen is the fact that politics is coming, and we know the issues that have fault lines, and some of these issues is important we posit them. But I must thank you, Professor Chidi Onya, the SSG to the Enugu State Government, as well as Dennis Agbo, representing Udeni Igbo North Federal Constituency in Enugu State. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's a where's the North Federal Constituency.
Where's the North
to the Federal Constituency. That's
all right. Thank you.
Where I represent.
Absolutely. Have a great day and the week ahead.